Avery, how are you?
There we are. Now we're on.
Avery, how are you?
Good, Dave.
There
How
you go.
doing? Hey,
I'm doing
listen,
great. I'm doing great.
good. I wanted to welcome everyone to Greenwin Suite Events, the Conversations with the Stars. It's Thursday, November 12th. Hard to believe middle of November already. Did I say December? November 12th. And we're live. It's exciting. Before we
We are
start,
live. Yeah.
I just want to say, if people think I'm storing here it is, storing walnuts in my cheek, I'm not. I had some oral surgery on Monday, but I didn't want to pass up this this next half hour with this friend and exceptional talent. I'll give you the honors into introducing this great guy.
Well, you're a real trooper, Ave, to be here tonight. And if anybody wants to ask questions or make comments, you can certainly do that, and we'll share that with our audience as well. He's performed for the Harold Green Jewish Theater Company, but he's also performed several shows on Broadway, some great, iconic TV shows on Canadian TV, Degrassi, to name a few, Suits, and the list goes on and on. He is as nice as he is talented, and we're thrilled to have him. Ladies and gentlemen, Jake Epstein.
Hello, gentlemen. Thank you for
Hello,
that
Jake.
lovely intro.
How you doing?
I'm doing great. I didn't
Yeah?
even notice your cheek until you pointed it out, actually.
I know,
Now it's all I can look at.
I know. It's all I can.
You look great.
It's terrible, you know. I mean, I
No,
know
you don't even see it. Yeah.
well, you know, that's all I think. I can only concentrate
Right.
on.
I would be the same way.
I know. It's just I mean, with they scrape here and they scrape there, and they take the gum off the roof of your mouth and they sew it into your cheek. And
Can't do dental.
oh, I know.
Nice. Okay. Well,
I don't want to kill the interview with my things of 4 needles in the top of my mouth, but that's another story. But I digress.
Oh God.
Welcome, Jake. How you been coping over the last couple months? You and your great wife Vanessa.
Okay, hanging in best as I can. There's been sort of good weeks and long weeks, and it's been a lot of gigs have been canceled, but we're still going. We're trying to stay positive, and on the whole, my wife and I, Vanessa, we've been really lucky. So
that's cool. You know, there's no more resilient people on earth than actors. And
for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, very. A lot of, especially in the theater, I feel like people are very resourceful. Used to just kind of doing what they have to do to survive, to get by, with kind of a smile on your face.
And you have to have a passion to do this to begin with, and sort of no choice. What was that like for you? Because you started at such an early age, sort of single-digit years. What was the influence or the inspiration to even get started in this crazy business?
Well, it was my sister, Gabby Epstein, who of course you guys know for those people watching. Yeah, she's an incredible singer and Stratford star, and she's been in multiple Harold Green shows. So she was the performer in the family, and I just idolized my sister growing up and saw her perform and have the confidence to get up and make people laugh. And so I sort of saw that as the greatest, coolest thing you could do as a kid, was to entertain people. That was like the currency in my family. And then my parents are both lovers of theater and the arts. My mom, Kathy Kaser, is a well-known writer. My dad, Ian Epstein's a lawyer, but with a huge passion for the arts. So our family vacation was a road trip to New York to see a Broadway play. So again, I just feel like that combo of having a sister who was incredibly talented and this very young exposure to amazing theater just made me fall in love with it. And so I really yeah, I just sort of naturally found my way into the business, just because I loved it so much and have somehow kept doing it for as many years as I've done it since then.
Well, I know you did Our Town and Oliver at the Royal Alex. I mean, you played the Artful Dodger when you were how old?
Yeah, Artful Dodger, I was 12 at the Princess of Wales Theatre.
Oh, it was Prince of Wales, yeah.
So that was massive. That was the Cameron McIntosh, North American tour. It's funny. I mean, it was a huge deal, but looking back on it, it was kind of like an activity. Like it was like joining the baseball team. Like I did the acting thing on stage. It just happened to be in front of 2,000 people every single night.
Well, how do you come upon that? Do you see how do you tell your folks you want to audition for that at such a young age, or how does that happen?
I was again, it's kind of wild how it happened. I auditioned for Claude Watson School of the Arts. So I went there in grade 4, and I think it was in grade 6. I had a teacher named Mr. Paul Como, who was my drama teacher, who has become a huge mentor in my life. And he was very good friends with a very well-known actor and director named Joseph Ziegler, who's a star with Soul Pepper, one of the creators of Soul Pepper Theater Company. So Joe was directing Our Town and asked Mr. Como if he had any students he thought would be good for the young roles. So he picked me to audition, and that's, was lucky enough to get the part. And then from there got an agent, and then the agent helped me get an audition for Oliver, and it kind of snowballed from there.
Can I ask a question? How does a director direct a young kid at 12 when you don't have the vocabulary for being an actor?
What was amazing about Joe was that he didn't treat the kids any different than any of the adults. He expected all the kids to come in off book, memorized, to once we blocked something, to know the blocking. He would sometimes tell me things like, you want to write down the blocking so you remember it. But I never felt like he was sort of talking down to me, or that. Of course, I was surrounded by like some of the greatest Canadian actors, of Peter Donaldson and Oliver Dennis and Martha Burns and John Jarvis and Diego Matamor. I mean, it was sort of the who's who of Toronto theater, Canadian theater. But at the time, I was just one of a group of people doing it. And then after, backstage, everyone would be smoking cigarettes in my face and telling me about how horrible the biz is. So it was
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah, it was very empowering.
Great school to start.
Yeah, absolutely.
And without self-consciousness, which is amazing. Fast forward, because we only
I
have,
just lost you guys.
sorry.
For a second.
Oh, here I am. Here I am. Fast forwarding, just because it's a shorter program. You got into TV, and not only that, but got into an iconic show playing Craig on Degrassi. And what was, I mean, it's just a remarkable series, first of all, for Canada, because it had international success.
Look at that.
And it was an important show for young people. And you mentioned in a pre-interview, you're still friends with a lot of the castmates. That include Drake.
It does include Drake, who I
that is so cool.
Drake. I have to call him Aubrey, but yeah, that's crazy. Yeah, I mean, how did that come about? The same way for any actor, it was an audition. It was one of many auditions that I had. I was aware of the show. I wasn't a massive fan of the original Degrassi, but I think in in elementary school for sex ed class, they would bring in episodes of Degrassi and like leave the room. Like that was as far as they would go to teach us anything about anything.
Yeah.
But yeah, I had this audition, and it went really well. And I remember just really particularly loving this part. And they brought me in for a callback, and the callback went even better. And then they brought me in for a screen test with some of the other actors on the show. And I yeah, I was very aware that it was something that I could do, that I enjoyed doing. In terms of the success of the show, at the time it was just within Canada. It was only really during the run of the show that it started airing in the US and having a bit of a cult following in the country. So it sort of grew into this, as you said, this iconic, Canadian teen soap opera. But again, at the time, it was a job. It was a fun job, and we all had a great time and worked really hard. And we were all in school, real school, as well as shooting. So it was a lot of work. But yeah, I mean, that's why it was sort of like my second high school. So I'm really close with a lot of the cast members.
I know they're bringing back
That's nice.
Saved by the Bell.
I just saw that.
I know. Are they going to? Will they reboot? Would they bring back Degrassi? Has there ever
Well,
been?
they technically already brought it back. It was there was the original Degrassi from the '80s. We were the reboot.
Oh,
Degrassi, the Next Generation.
Oh.
I mean, they absolutely could bring it back. I think it's a show that's about high school today. So I don't think that ever gets old, and you can keep introducing new characters dealing with the things that current young people are dealing with, and it'll be relevant. So they absolutely could bring it back. I would be the weird kooky music teacher, I'm sure, or something.
you were you were the troubled kid.
I was the troubled character. Yes.
Like
Craig had a bit of a hard time.
Smoking were you into drugs and stuff like that?
The character was bipolar, so he would go off. He went off his meds, and he would do foolish things. But his father was abusive. There was a lot of pretty heavy storylines to be doing when you're 15, 16. So it was sort of ironic to say it was fun, but I found it fun to sort of research, and there was a therapist on set with us that we could really talk to, and I have a relative who is bipolar, and so I really spoke to him about that, and as an actor, I really enjoyed it. I had a great time.
Wow.
I guess part of the success was this honest, authentic look at teenage life in a way that hadn't been looked at before.
Yeah. At the time, I don't think bipolar disorder, mental illness, was really portrayed in teenagers. Since then, it's very much portrayed. It was, there was a character who came out on the show, and it was one of the first. Certainly, I think the first young person to come out on a major show. There was an abortion episode that was banned in the U.S. It certainly was pushing the envelope, and certainly paved the way for a lot of the TV and the movies that we see today.
Wow.
So I was proud. I'm proud to be part of it. I mean, it's funny getting recognized today, because it's like being recognized for like a play you did in high school or something.
Yeah.
Like it's sort of you're like, oh god,
but you still have
see that? Like you
have your youthful look, so that's good.
About it, but it's
is it still in reruns? Can you catch it? I guess you can see it on the line or YouTube.
Yeah, I
or
think
whatever.
it's online somewhere, and I think it does still play on. I don't even know exactly when, but it's still on. They still do reruns.
Wow. And then I guess your life, I mean, between stage and the movies and these TV series, you made your way to. You had your dream come true of being on Broadway a couple times. You starred as Spider-Man in Spider-Man the Musical.
There it is. Right.
Look at that.
Incredible. Great costume.
Yeah.
What theater was that in?
Suit that I am wearing underneath the spandex. I'm just gonna put that out there.
You didn't have to say that.
I don't have to say that. I just think it was. I loved the muscle suit. I wish I could have stolen the muscle suit. It would have made my life.
Oh, that was my next question. If you have it hanging in the closet, but
oh man.
Yeah. How long did you do that for?
I did Spider-Man for a year.
For a year.
Yeah.
Wow.
It was quite physical.
It was very physical. Everything about Spider-Man was crazy. The audition process was crazy. I had to audition for Bono. from U2 who wrote the music. I had to audition for the Marvel team. They had to approve me. I was brought to the Foxwoods Theater, which is now called the Lyric Theater in New York, and they flew me around the theater to see if it would make me scared, which of course I was. But I think they just wanted to make sure that I was kind of game to do whatever they needed to do. I only had about 2.5 weeks before my first show. I mean, it was really it happened in a second, and then all of a sudden I was starring in this crazy mammoth of a Broadway musical.
Wow.
Like you said, like living a dream of mine. But it was very scary, and
well, this is your one-man show, Boys Fall from the Sky.
Just a crazy experience. Sorry, what's that, Abe?
No, I mean, Samantha just showed the thing of Boys Fall from the Sky, your one-man show, where you talk a lot about that, how it took a toll on you physically.
It did. I mean, it was, of course, Spider-Man was very well known, is very well known for being this infamous production where everyone got injured. But I will say, I came into it about a year after it had opened. So the majority of the injuries had happened before I joined the show. I had my own share of injuries from sustained landing too hard on my joints. Which I talk about in my one-man show. But on the whole, it was beyond anything that I thought was possible. I mean, it was really, it was pretty crazy. Little kids, after the show would grab my wrist to see where my web shooters were and ask for autographs. I mean, it was just, it was just a crazy experience.
I mean, this may seem like an odd question, but when you're in a show like Spider-Man, where the character is a superhero, and I guess kids and family are there basically to see the superhero, you get lost in the shuffle as an actor?
Yeah, I mean, I was aware that Spider-Man was the star of the show, and your job was to, there it is again.
Yeah.
Let's just show it again.
Represent him. Yeah.
Yeah, wow. Your job was to portray it. But what was great about it is that I was a very different actor, a very different singer than Reeve Carney, who originated the role. He was this kind of blonde, rock star with this kind of I was sort of a classically trained singer and a classically trained actor. So I just brought in a lot of comedy to the role, which wasn't there before. And I had done 2 pantos in Toronto with Ross Petty. Where you boo the villain and you cheer the hero, and I realized when I was auditioning for Spider-Man that it was a multi-million-dollar panto, essentially, and I was the hero, I was the prince, and that it would be successful if I found as much comedy, as much fun in it as possible. So that was sort of that was kind of my way in. So I did feel like I got to create something. Right. As an artist, as an actor, that felt unique to me and unique to my my own take on Spider-Man.
Were you ever afraid, sorry Dave, were you ever afraid they weren't going to hook you up right to fly?
Oh yeah. Oh, every day. Yes. I had recurring nightmares about not being hooked up right. I actually had bigger nightmares about cracking on high notes. That those Bono really high screaming rock notes. So I was actually more nervous about singing cracking in front of a lot of people if my voice was tired than I was about the flying. But yeah, certainly the flying, if you didn't have a good sleep the night before a show, it made for a very nervous, very stressful show.
You talk about, you went to an audition and you got this, happened to get this audition, and we skipped from Degrassi to Broadway, but in between
there was a lot of years and a lot of steps before then. Yeah.
And a lot of work. I mean, you're a graduate of the National Theatre School, which is a renowned school around the world. So it's, people don't sometimes always appreciate the hard work, whether it's going to a school or studying throughout one's life. your craft in order to stay up and sharp.
I mean, and my crazy story is that I left Degrassi to go study at school. I'd done the show for about 5 years and had reached the last year of my contract, and knew that I loved acting, knew that I wanted to study, and came from a family of academics who all said, you know, if you're interested in something, you go to school. So I left the show when it was sort of at the height of its popularity to go study theater. And I haven't regretted that for a single day, because it gave me this foundation and it's kind of sustained I think it's one of the reasons that I'm still able to be a professional actor, is because of a commitment to try to study and not just rely on sort of teen popularity or, you know, your looks or whatever.
Wow.
You know,
that's incredible. I don't know if a lot of people would do that. It takes a lot of
I don't know if I would do it now. You know, I like it's, there's something to be said about sort of, you know, youthful confidence, but it was a decision that I knew I had to make at the time, and put me on this incredible path toward my dream, toward going to New York and performing there. And so I think it was a good decision.
Then you did another great show on Broadway. You did a show called Beautiful about Carole King, and you played Jerry Goffin, right? Her first husband.
Yes.
Again, not again, I don't want to say not likable, but a troubled.
Yes. I mean, very different than Spider-Man.
Very different.
But yes, a
anti-hero.
Troubled type, to kind of like a callback to my Degrassi character a little bit. Jerry Goffin was bipolar as well, which I think when I was auditioning for it, for sure, my history of playing a character with bipolar disorder for sure gave me a leg up on understanding the guy a little bit.
Yeah. You're starting to be typecast now.
Sorry, what's that? You're
starting to be typecast now.
I know, absolutely. I know. But I grew up loving folk music. My dad in particular was a massive fan of, you know, Carole King and James Taylor and Simon and Garfunkel, and so that music was so embedded in me. In fact, on our, you know, road trips to New York, we would be blasting folk music from the 60s and 70s. So I also had such a love of Carole King's music. So yeah, and then you know, the whole ride of getting to be part of an original cast of a Broadway show was pretty wild as well.
Was she pretty much hands-on? Was she there often?
No, she was extremely hands-off because the story was very painful for her, very personal for her. She gave the go-ahead to go and create the show, but she basically said, her daughter Sherry Goffin is her manager, so she kind of said, my daughter's going to handle the show, and I don't want to have anything to do with it. And excuse me, it wasn't until we'd opened on Broadway and the show became a hit for all intents and purposes that everyone encouraged her to come. So she put on a wig apparently and wore some like funny disguise. Because could you imagine, she couldn't be in the audience. She would get, you know, just mobbed.
Oh yeah.
So she watched the show, and then during our curtain call, she walked out on stage.
Wow.
The audience went nuts. We all burst into tears. It was this public. It's actually on YouTube. And then went about raising. She raised about $30,000 in about 5 minutes for Broadway Cares Equity Fights AIDS, and basically said, "I'll sing. You know, if we can raise enough money, I'll sing 'You've Got a Friend' right now." Yeah. And the audience, everyone pitched in, and then we all sang "You've Got a Friend" with Carole King. Yeah. So I think since then she's been very very hands-on. I think she loves the show now. But not at the beginning.
Samantha showed a poster for Boys, The Fall from the Sky. Boy Falls from the Sky, which is an accumulation of your Broadway experiences. Looking where the story, this was going to be going on for Mervich off stage, And unfortunately, because of COVID, I think it's rescheduled for 2021. But it's a remarkable sort of narrative about your personal experience and expectation and reality, and uh, which goes beyond simply showbiz. It's life in general. What was that like putting that together? Was there a sort of a cathartic
Yeah,
end
it was
because you
very
put?
cathartic. I mean, there was a need to tell these stories. I'd lived in New York for 7 years. I had accomplished all these things that I dreamed about as a kid, but for a series of things that I experienced in New York, I felt very empty, even though I should have felt like I was like achieving everything that I wanted to achieve. But I came home afterwards and I didn't really know how to keep going as an actor. I felt really stuck, and my wife is a writer and a storyteller, and she used to host this storytelling event called The Spoke. There she is.
Yeah, beautiful. Vanessa Smythe.
Vanessa Smythe,
Yes, thank you. So
so talented.
yeah, she hosted this great event. So she'd encouraged me to come and tell some stories from my life, and I was I started just loving the idea of storytelling and the connection with an audience, and so I realized that I had this incredible story about my experience going to New York and everything that happened to me there, and so I pitched the idea to my favorite director in the country, Robert McQueen, thinking like, well, okay, he's the absolute dream collaborator, and then we'll move on from there. But he was amazing and loved the idea and loved the stories, and so we collaborated, and he helped me kind of really get to the core of what it was I wanted to say, and then we had a show, and we did it at the Toronto Fringe Festival, and it did very well at the Fringe. It won Best of Fringe and Outstanding Production, and it's kind of created a little bit of a path for me, kind of doing this storytelling show. So it's really one of the joys of my life is getting to tell this story, these series of stories, and really celebrate everything about my experience in New York, the ups and the downs, the flying in Spider-Man, the getting injured in Spider-Man, like we're just really owning everything and turning it into a piece of comedy and entertainment.
Well, that was the beauty of it, because I saw it and I loved it, and it was so devoid of ego. There wasn't any ego in the show. It was just pure heart that came from you, and just talking about your experiences and how difficult they were emotionally and physically, and it painted a really honest portrayal of an actor doing their thing 8 times a week and the biggest of shows, and
and one of the gifts it has given me is I had kind of stopped singing after New York emotionally, and I lost my voice completely. I had to go to a speech therapist. My body didn't want to sing anymore. And when I started making the show again, it allowed me to start singing again and performing again. So it's sort of I think you said, is it cathartic? I mean, I think it's really, I don't think theater should be like therapy, but it certainly gave me this gift of really getting to own this part of my life and really celebrate it, and has allowed me to keep going and keep performing.
It's funny, great. As actors, we tell stories that illuminate humanity sometimes in entertaining ways, and yet sometimes we have our own lives, but not everyone has Vanessa Smythe in their life that helps them sort of process it and share it in a creative way in order to get through it and see a new perspective on it.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, she's the reason that I made the show. She kind of gave me the confidence and the courage to go out and tell these stories, and she's the best.
That's great. This half hour went by so fast. I mean, it's a good time to leave now, because it's we left on your one-man show, and I just want to say, as a friend, David and I really appreciate you sharing this half hour with us.
My pleasure.
I wanted to do Samantha. Will you say hi? This is Samantha backstage. You presses all the buttons. Hi, Samantha.
I'm not sleeping.
We're back.
I'm not
Another great job.
Another good day. We're back again
Thank you very much.
Thursday, and our guest will be from Jersey Boys, the original Jersey Boy himself, Jeff Madden, will be here next Thursday night. So we're fortunate. But from Dave and I, Jake, thank you so much for the last half hour. And we leave always these things with a lightning round. Okay?
Okay.
So here, Dave, you want to start with
One-word answers.
One-word answer.
Sure, one-word answers.
Okay.
Here you go. Starting with, do you have a middle name?
Lee.
Okay. Dark or light chocolate?
Milk.
Oh.
Chocolate.
Milk.
Yeah.
Fox News or CNN?
CNN.
Favorite TV series of all time?
Oh. The West Wing.
It's a tough one. Oh, interesting. Who was your teen idol crush?
Danielle Fisher, who played Topanga in Boy Meets World.
Okay.
Who is your 2020 crush?
Oh, my wife. Got it. The wife. Hands down, the wife.
Was just off stage.
Yeah.
And the final question we have.
Hit me really hard if I didn't say that. Yeah.
Our final question is: if you had one word for humanity right now, what would that word be?
Oh, hope.
Nice. Great.
Beautiful.
Thank you so much.
Well, we hope.
Thank you guys for having me. This was,
Thank you. We hope you have
fun.
Beautiful. We hope you have continued success, both of you. You just bought a home. May you continue to grow in all ways, professionally and personally. And we really thank you for sharing your time.
Appreciate that. Yeah, I love you guys. Thank
Love
you.
you too, Jake. Thanks, pal. See you soon. Bye, guys. Good night, everybody.
Bye, everyone.
Good night.